A millionaire woman told to solve a math puzzle, then silenced the professor with her genius. The autumn afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows of Harvard University's mathematics department, casting geometric patterns across the polished wood floors of the graduate seminar room. This was where the most brilliant mathematical minds gathered to discuss theoretical problems that pushed the boundaries of human understanding, where equations that could unlock the secrets of the universe were debated with the passion that others reserved for sports or politics. Today's gathering was particularly prestigious, bringing together some of the most distinguished mathematicians from universities across the country to witness what Professor Marcus Thornfield considered his crowning intellectual achievement. Thornfield, a man whose reputation had been built on solving problems that others deemed impossible, had spent the past 3 years developing what he believed to be an unsolvable mathematical puzzle, a proof so complex and counterintuitive that it would serve as the ultimate test of mathematical genius. At 62, Professor Thornfield had dedicated his entire career to being the smartest person in any room he entered. His office walls were lined with awards, honorary degrees, and photographs of himself with Nobel laureates and Fields Medal winners. He had built his identity around intellectual superiority, particularly in an academic environment where he could control the conversation and dominate less experienced minds. Thornfield's puzzle involved a complex interaction between number theory, topology, and advanced calculus that required not only technical mastery, but innovative thinking that could bridge multiple mathematical disciplines. He had presented variants of the problem to the most accomplished mathematicians in the world, and none had been able to find a solution. The puzzle had become his signature challenge, a way of demonstrating the limits of even the most sophisticated mathematical minds. The invitation to today's presentation had been extended to an unusual guest, someone who had never published a mathematical paper, held no academic position, and was known to the university only through her substantial financial contributions to their research programs. Elena Vasquez was a 49-year-old entrepreneur who had built a fortune through a series of successful technology companies, each based on algorithmic innovations that had revolutionized their respective industries. Elena's presence at Harvard was the result of a casual conversation at a fundraising dinner where she had expressed interest in the theoretical work being conducted by the mathematics department. Her questions about current research had been surprisingly sophisticated, suggesting a level of mathematical understanding that intrigued several faculty members. When Professor Thornfield learned of her interest, he saw an opportunity to demonstrate his intellectual superiority to a wealthy donor while simultaneously showcasing his unsolvable puzzle to a broader audience. What the academic community didn't know about Elena was that her business success had been built on mathematical insights that went far beyond the typical entrepreneurial skill set. Each of her companies had succeeded because she could see patterns and relationships in complex data that eluded other analysts. Her algorithms didn't just process information, they revealed hidden mathematical structures that could predict market behavior, optimize resource allocation, and solve problems that traditional business approaches couldn't address. Elena's mathematical abilities had developed in isolation from the academic world. As a young woman from a working-class immigrant family, she had never had the resources or connections to pursue graduate studies in mathematics. Instead, she had taught herself advanced mathematical concepts through textbooks and online resources while working full-time jobs to support her education. Her understanding of mathematics was practical and intuitive rather than formally structured, but it was also deeper and more flexible than many traditionally trained mathematicians possessed. The invitation to Harvard represented Elena's first opportunity to engage with the academic mathematical community, and she approached it with the same careful preparation that had made her business venture successful. She had researched Professor Thornfield's previous work, studied the mathematical principles underlying his research, and familiarized herself with the current state of theoretical mathematics in his areas of expertise. As Elena entered the seminar room, she was immediately aware of being an outsider in this academic environment. The other attendees were all men, all traditionally credentialed, and all part of an intellectual community that had never included someone with her background. Her business attire and practical demeanor marked her as different from the Tweety professors and earnest graduate students who comprised the usual audience for these presentations. Professor Thornfield's introduction of Elena was polite but subtly condescending. He described her as a successful businesswoman with an interest in mathematics, carefully avoiding any suggestion that she might possess serious mathematical capabilities. His tone conveyed the assumption that her presence was more about financial patronage than intellectual contribution, and that her role would be to observe and appreciate rather than participate meaningfully in the discussion. The mathematical puzzle that Thornfield presented was indeed formidable. It involved proving the existence of a particular type of mathematical structure that connected seemingly unrelated areas of advanced mathematics. The problem required not only technical skill, but the kind of creative insight that could only come from years of deep immersion in mathematical thinking. Thornfield had designed it specifically to be beyond the reach of anyone who wasn't part of the elite circle of professional mathematicians. As Thornfield explained the puzzle's parameters and the failed attempts that previous mathematicians had made to solve it, Elena listened with the focused attention that had served her well in analyzing complex business problems. She was processing not just the mathematical content, but also the underlying assumptions and methodological approaches that had shaped previous solution attempts. The moment that would change everything came when Thornfield, perhaps inspired by the presence of his wealthy audience, or simply unable to resist demonstrating his intellectual dominance, issued a direct challenge to Elena. He suggested that she might want to try her hand at the puzzle, framing the invitation as an educational exercise that would help her appreciate the complexity of serious mathematical work. The suggestion drew uncomfortable laughter from some of the other attendees who recognized it as intellectual hazing disguised as polite inclusion. They expected Elena to decline gracefully or perhaps make a brief token effort that would allow Thornfield to demonstrate his superior understanding by explaining why her approach wouldn't work. Elena's acceptance of the challenge surprised everyone in the room. Rather than demurring or expressing appropriate humility about her mathematical limitations, she asked for access to a whiteboard and suggested that she would need about 30 minutes to work through the problem. Her confidence was so unexpected that it created an atmosphere of curiosity mixed with skepticism among the assembled mathematicians. As Elena approached the whiteboard, she experienced a familiar feeling of clarity and focus that had guided her through every successful business venture. The problem wasn't fundamentally different from the complex optimization challenges she had solved in developing her algorithms. It required the same ability to see patterns, make connections, and think systematically about relationships between different variables. Elena's approach to the puzzle was unlike anything the academic mathematicians had witnessed before. Rather than beginning with formal proofs or established theorems, she started by sketching out the problem's essential structure in a way that revealed relationships that others had missed. Her visual representation of the mathematical concepts was elegant and intuitive, showing connections that made the complex problem suddenly seem manageable. As Elena continued working, the room gradually fell silent. The casual conversations and whispered asides that had characterized the beginning of her attempt were replaced by focused attention as the mathematicians realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. Elena's approach wasn't just unconventional, it was brilliant, revealing insights that had eluded some of the most accomplished mathematical minds in the world. Professor Thornfield's initial amusement at Elena's presumption gradually transformed into concern as he recognized that her approach was not only valid but potentially successful. The puzzle that he had considered unsolvable was yielding to her systematic analysis in ways that challenged his fundamental assumptions about mathematical ability and training. The tension in the room was palpable as Elena worked through the final steps of her solution, her movements at the whiteboard confident and precise. The mathematical community was about to witness something that would force them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about genius, education, and the nature of mathematical insight. As Elena completed her solution on the whiteboard, the silence in the seminar room was so complete that the only sound was the soft scratching of her marker against the surface. The mathematical proof she had constructed was not only correct, but elegant in its simplicity, revealing the solution to Professor Thornfield's puzzle-through approach that was both innovative and logically unassailable. Elena's method had bypassed the traditional techniques that other mathematicians had attempted, instead using a novel combination of topological insights and number theory that created a direct path to the solution. Her approach revealed that the problem's apparent complexity had been masking an underlying mathematical structure that, once recognized, made the proof almost inevitable. The assembled mathematicians stared at the whiteboard in stunned silence, processing the implications of what they were witnessing. Elena had solved in 30 minutes a problem that had stymied some of the most brilliant mathematical minds for over 3 years. More disturbing to their academic worldview was the fact that her solution was so clear and logical that they wondered why none of them had seen it before. Professor Thornfield's reaction was the most dramatic. His entire professional identity had been built on being the smartest person in the room, the mathematician who could solve problems that others couldn't even understand. Elena's success represented more than just an intellectual defeat. It was a fundamental challenge to his assumptions about mathematical ability, academic training, and the nature of genius itself. As the reality of Elena's achievement sank in, the other mathematicians began to recognize the broader implications of what had occurred. Here was someone with no formal mathematical credentials, no published papers, and no position in the academic hierarchy who had just demonstrated mathematical insights that surpassed their own. The discovery forced them to confront uncomfortable questions about their assumptions regarding who could be considered a legitimate mathematician. Elena's background story, which emerged during the discussion that followed her solution, revealed the extent to which mathematical talent had been overlooked by traditional academic institutions. Her journey from working-class immigrant daughter to successful entrepreneur had been shaped by mathematical thinking that was both sophisticated and practical, but it had developed entirely outside the formal educational system that typically produced recognized mathematicians. The universities and research institutions that prided themselves on identifying and nurturing mathematical talent had completely missed Elena's abilities because she didn't fit their expectations about what a mathematician should look like or where mathematical genius should be found. Her success challenged the academic community to examine their own biases and limitations in recognizing talent. Elena's mathematical abilities had been evident from childhood, but they had never been formally recognized or developed because she attended underfunded schools that lacked resources for advanced mathematics education. Her family's financial circumstances had required her to work throughout high school and college, leaving little time for the kind of intensive mathematical study that typically led to graduate programs and academic careers. Instead, Elena had applied her mathematical insights to practical problems in the business world, where her ability to see patterns and relationships in complex data had generated enormous value. Each of her successful companies had been based on algorithmic innovations that demonstrated mathematical sophistication that rivaled or exceeded what was being produced in academic research settings. The technology companies Elena had founded weren't just successful businesses, they were practical applications of advanced mathematical concepts that had solved real-world problems affecting millions of people. Her algorithms had optimized supply chains, predicted market behavior, and created efficiencies that traditional business approaches couldn't achieve. She had been doing applied mathematics at the highest level while the academic community remained unaware of her abilities. Elena's wealth, which had initially been seen as her primary qualification for inclusion in the Harvard presentation, was revealed to be the byproduct of mathematical genius that had found expression in entrepreneurial success rather than academic achievement. Her financial resources were the result of translating abstract mathematical insights into practical solutions that created enormous economic value. The implications of Elena's achievement extended beyond mathematics to broader questions about how society identifies and develops talent. Her story suggested that there might be many individuals with extraordinary abilities who had never been recognized because they didn't have access to the institutions and opportunities that typically nurture such gifts. Professor Thornfield's puzzle, which had been designed to demonstrate the limits of mathematical ability, had instead revealed the limitations of the academic system itself. The problem that had been unsolvable within the traditional mathematical community had yielded to an approach that combined formal mathematical training with practical problem-solving experience gained outside academic institutions. As news of Elena's achievement spread through the mathematical community, it sparked intense debate about the nature of mathematical genius and the effectiveness of traditional educational approaches. Some argued that Elena's success was an anomaly that didn't challenge the fundamental value of formal mathematical training. Others saw it as evidence that the academic community had been too narrow in its definition of mathematical ability and too limited in its efforts to identify and develop talent. Elena's response to her sudden fame within the mathematical community was characteristically practical. Rather than seeking academic recognition or attempting to build a career as a professional mathematician, she focused on using her newfound platform to advocate for educational reforms that would help identify and develop mathematical talent. In underserved communities, she established a foundation that provided resources and opportunities for students from backgrounds similar to her own, creating pathways for mathematical education that didn't depend on traditional academic institutions. Her programs identified young people with mathematical potential and provided them with the support and resources needed to develop their abilities, regardless of their economic circumstances or educational background. Elena's approach to mathematical education emphasized practical applications and real-world problem-solving alongside theoretical understanding. Her program showed students how mathematical concepts could be used to address social problems, create business opportunities, and improve their communities. This approach made mathematics more accessible and relevant to students who might otherwise have seen it as abstract and unconnected to their lives. The success of Elena's educational initiatives demonstrated that mathematical talent was far more widely distributed than the academic community had recognized. Many of the students her program supported went on to make significant contributions to both theoretical and applied mathematics, proving that genius could emerge from unexpected places when given appropriate opportunities and support. Elena's legacy in the mathematical community extended beyond her solution to Professor Thornfield's puzzle to encompass a fundamental shift in how mathematical ability was understood and developed. Her achievement forced mathematicians to confront their own assumptions about talent, education, and the sources of mathematical insight. The story concluded with Elena delivering a keynote address at a major mathematics conference, where she challenged the academic community to expand their definition of what it meant to be a mathematician. Her message emphasized that mathematical genius could emerge from any background and that the community's responsibility was to create inclusive opportunities that would help identify and develop talent wherever it might be found. Elena's journey from overlooked immigrant daughter to recognized mathematical genius served as an inspiration to countless individuals who had been told that their backgrounds or circumstances made advanced mathematics inaccessible to them. Her success proved that with determination, creativity, and the right opportunities, anyone could contribute to the advancement of mathematical knowledge and use mathematical thinking to solve important problems. The puzzle that Professor Thornfield had intended as a demonstration of academic superiority had instead become a catalyst for democratizing mathematics and expanding the community's understanding of where genius could be found. Elena's elegant solution had done more than solve a complex mathematical problem. It had opened doors for a new generation of mathematicians who would bring diverse perspectives and approaches to the field.
Thank you for watching this story unfold with us here on M&A The Story Unfolds. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new tale. We'd love to know where you're watching. Leave a comment below and tell us what part of the world you're joining us from. Your support means everything. See you in the next story.